first up, I have Joker, Folie, Deux, and I was not a fan of the first Joker film. It just did not resonate with me. I found the reaction of certain audiences to it really disconcerting. They were taking away the wrong thing from it. And so, when I found out they were making a sequel, I went, why? Because as much as the first film was not for me, this is my least favorite interpretation of the Joker. I'm not a huge Joaquin Phoenix fan, but I did respect that the ending of that story felt like the ending of that story. So why are we making a sequel? But here we are. The second one is out, and I did not enjoy this film, but for different reasons. I went in with an open mind and also love Lady Gaga. So I was like, all right, let's see what we're going to do here. This film, I don't think it's for people who were fans of the first one because it does not contain the same levels of mania and, scariness to me in many senses that the first one does. This one is, and I hope this isn't too much of a spoiler, this is basically a courtroom drama, but a really long, boring one. And it is also, I don't care what they say, it is a musical. It's not a musical in the sense of they are singing dialogue effectively to each other, but they are using song to communicate, and there are like fantasy sequences that are songs that at a certain point stop advancing the story. So I'm like, why are you doing it? So it is a musical, which I would love it if the, Joker 1 audience was like open-minded and a huge fan of musicals and contained multitudes, but I don't think the people who the first chaotic one resonated with. This movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes. It is way too long. I actually like a courtroom drama, and I liked that there was actually less kind of violence in this to a degree, and so I was like, all right, like, where are we going with this? But man, oh man, like, I don't know what's going on here. It was so boring. And like, we get it. Joaquin Phoenix, you lost a bunch of weight to play this role again. Lady Gaga. It's interesting for me. So again, Lady Gaga, brilliant singer. I think she can be a decent actress a lot of the time. Her Harley Quinn is, it's fine. It's fine. I think this is Harley Quinn's story. And I think that they were too afraid to call it Harley Quinn, and Joker or whatever it is. And so they keep gravitating towards her and having her lead and then like pulling away as if they're afraid that because it's called the Joker that they can't focus on another character. I will give a shout out. Brendan Gleeson is in this as a prison guard at Arkham Asylum. He's so good in this. I love Brendan Gleeson. And clearly somebody on the casting team is a fan of the show industry because we've got Harry Lottie who plays Harvey Dent in this, and then Ken Leung who plays somebody else in it. You've also got Catherine Keener, Zazie Beetz, and Steve Coogan. And again, went in open-minded. I don't understand why, if you have cast Lady Gaga in a role and there are musical numbers, if you are going to spend the majority of your time having Joaquin Phoenix sing. And yes, I know Joaquin Phoenix was in Walk the Line, but that doesn't mean he's a singer. And also, I get it, it's part of the character. He's singing poorly or painfully. He's not supposed to be a trained singer, but it becomes very grating. And like I said, this film is too long, so you could cut a lot of his music sequences from it, and it would tighten it up at least a bit. Again, I think there are some of the musical sequences that do serve the story, and then there are some that I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like, this is just going on too long. And then when Lady Gaga sings, maybe, again, this is an artistic choice in having her not sing as strongly or cleanly as, you would expect Lady Gaga to in the beginning. But at a certain point, hers is hard to listen to. So I'm like, what are we doing? Like, you're just berating our ears with a musical cacophony that doesn't serve any purpose. And then there's maybe like one, banger of a Lady Gaga-esque song, which isn't, think more of a Tony Bennett Lady Gaga collab vibe than like a Lady Gaga Born This Way vibe. Again, I think this movie was too long. I think it is really slow and uninteresting. I kept going, what is the story we're trying to tell here? Like, what is the point of this? Are we trying to say anything with this? No. And I don't want to watch a movie that doesn't have that and doesn't really have character development. Again, Harley Quinn goes through a character arc that if this had been Harley Quinn's movie and we'd focus more on her, I would have been interested in. But we didn't. We just kept being like, we're going to show her as one-dimensional, and then we're going to show her as three-dimensional, but then we are too afraid of that because, God forbid, and then we go back to one-dimensional. Also, if you're a Harley Quinn purist, I don't think you're going to really love the way the origin of this works out. But like I said, this was not for me in a different way than the first one was not for me, because at least the first one, I was like, ugh, I don't like the vision of what you're doing, but I see what you're doing here. This one felt just rambling and misguided and kind of like a money grab. It's certainly not going to be another Oscar grab. Like, I know Lady Gaga was going hard for the House of Gucci stuff. It's just not going to be that for this. I don't think it's going to get a music nod. So I don't think that they knew what story they wanted to tell. And because of that, the whole thing falls apart. I really was just, two of my friends, I'm so sorry, I won't call them by name, but two of my friends who are not Joker fans fell asleep during this movie and started snoring, like, independent of each other. And totally acknowledge, we're tired. It's a busy season for us, but that's not a good sign when people just fall asleep. And it wasn't a late screening. This was like an early one. And I'm really sorry, but I don't think this is for people who are fans of the first. I don't think this is for Lady Gaga fans, because you're not going to get the Lady Gaga you love. And also you're going to have to sit and suffer through all the kind of like Joker tangents, I'll almost call them. And then I also am like, this isn't for Batman fans necessarily, because also I meant to mention this. I don't know if you need to have seen the first one in order to see this. It's an odd one to see without having seen the first, but they certainly do enough to reference the events of the first, or the key events that you need, and they definitely spoon feed it to you, which is fine, whatever, because I was certainly not going to rewatch the first one. But that's also, it's a strange thing where it's just like, okay, well, yeah, I guess if you're familiar with the idea of the Joker and that he's effectively a psychopath and he's done bad things, you can hop into this without, any other context. But it was a weird sequel in many senses, because again, I feel like it was distancing itself some ways from the stylings of the first one. So this was not for me in a different way than the first one was not for me. I'm only going to give this a 1.8 out of 5. The other thing I want to flag this week, because I needed something to buoy my spirits, is a series that is premiering on October 6th on HBO, and it's called The Franchise. And this is maybe one of the funniest shows I've seen in a very long time. This is not necessarily going to be for everyone, but for the people who will appreciate it, you will absolutely love it. So it's from a bunch of the creatives who worked on Veep, including executive producer Armando Iannucci, and it is about a crew of people who are working on a superhero franchise. Do we see the parallels here? And it's not supposed to be one franchise in particular. I think it is poking fun at the entire, superhero industrial complex. Think more along the lines of Marvel movies and Batman has gotten very dark, but like a Justice League, right? Versus say a Joker, because that lives in its own kind of pocket of attempting to be high art, but not necessarily succeeding. Anyway, I love this series so much. I did not expect anything from it, but it is so funny. If you at all are involved in the entertainment industry, or if you are somebody who follows along with the behind the scenes and kind of comings and goings of the superhero industrial complex, you will definitely appreciate the show. And again, it is so funny and so smart and very uncomfortable at times, because like Veep, sometimes you're like, ooh, too close to home. What is happening here? But it is so good. It stars a bunch of people who but nobody except for one person is involved in a major superhero franchise at present. You have Himesh Patel, and he plays this beleaguered first AD who, is just keeping everything together. You have Daniel Bruhl as the director of the series, who's like an artistic director who has been lured into directing, a big commercial blockbuster. He is probably one of my favorite characters on the show. I just was crying laughing. You've got Aya Cash as a producer. You've got Billy Magnuson as one of the stars of the superhero series, who is very energetic but also ridiculously insecure. You've got Richard E. Grant, who is, I love Richard E. Grant so much in anything and everything, and he is just having so much fun in this, clearly. You've got Jessica Hines, Lolly Adefope, Darren Goldstein, Isaac Cole Powell, and again, aside from Daniel Bruhl, who I will acknowledge was obviously in, Marvel films and big Marvel films, he did play a villain. All these folks are folks you've probably seen before and vaguely recognize, but you're not yes, except Richard E. Grant is the other exception there. And it's funny because Aya Cash, of course, is on The Boys and then is getting a spinoff. But anyway, this show is so specific and so funny, and it is a workplace drama. So even if you are not related to the entertainment industry and you don't care that much about superhero stuff, if you've seen a movie, if it's a blockbuster film, and you have ever worked in any sort of team environment, I think there is something in this for you. If you are somebody who is super uncomfortable with the Veep humor, which is actually, I fall into that category, and I will admit, I couldn't watch Veep because it makes me so uncomfortable. Also, it is just too close to real world home, and I think work home for me, production stuff is, I can get, that's less dangerous in the greater consequences of the world. So anyway, if you were somebody who really can't deal with that humor, this might not be for you, but I do encourage you to give it a chance. It premieres on October 6th. I loved it so much.